Ready one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, welcome back. I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Today I'm going to do the Finally Fall book tag. This was a tag originally created by Tall Tales, and I just this morning saw just one reader's tag, and he said anybody who hasn't already done this that's interested, please do it. So that would be me. So let's begin. Some of these questions, just like all the tags, some of them resonate and others don't, so let's see how it goes. Number 1. In fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. Now this is really interesting for me because I don't really care about setting the way a lot of readers do. Now I appreciate the writing and I don't skim. I think I used to, but I'm so focused on the characters and the relationship between the characters that basically I have a few templates in my mind. Countryside, town, city, England, Canada, US, or whatever the country, but beyond that I don't really care or pay too much attention. Like I say, I try to experience the writing which describes the setting, but it's not really my thing. But it goes without saying that the book that I've read in the last couple of years that has situated its story so vividly would be Rebecca by DAPHNE du Maurier. Maxim de Winter's country estate, Manderley. I can almost picture it. Now, that's a popular book with quite a few booktubers and book podcasters, and I liked it very much. Didn't love it, but I did like it. I would also say settings where I myself live or have lived, I experience more deeply and am more interested in. So I have one example. I've lived in Edmonton, Alberta for a total of 5 years. 3 years and then later 2 years again in the 80s and 90s. And this is an Alberta novel called The Stud Horse Man by Robert Croach. And at least part of I don't remember this book very well. This is due for a reread. I think I studied it in university about 100 years ago, and I remember that I loved it. Despite it being a very manly novel and quite postmodern, neither of which I am, I really enjoyed it, and I just remember that the main character, who's this studly rancher dude, I think it's set in Alberta just after the Second World War, but I don't really remember. I think he's on horseback or something, but he's going across the high-level bridge in Edmonton, Alberta, and that's a bridge that anybody who lives in Edmonton knows very well. It's one of the main bridges that connects the south side to the downtown, and I used to live very close to that, and I drove across or walked across that bridge almost every day of those 5 years. So I remember reading that passage where the character goes across it, and just the way he described it, I could picture it because it was a real place for me. So I am more alive to setting when a book is set someplace where I know. So number 2 is going to be short. Nature is beautiful but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. So this one I kind of roll my eyes because that describes all my favorite books. I only am interested in books that deal with heavy topics that are beautifully written, and I'm not going to pick one that I've talked about before, but any of the ones that I've already said I loved would fit into this category. I've chosen Midwinter by Fiona Melrose. This is her debut from last year. And while it's not a perfect novel, I loved it deeply, and I'm very excited, as I've said before, to read her second novel, which has just come out, Johannesburg. This book is set in Africa, and especially in Suffolk, UK. The writing is beautiful, and there's a lot of loss and grief in the novel. I found it incredibly moving. So, Midwinter. This is number 3. Fall is back to school season. Share a non-fiction book that taught you something new. As I've said before, I'm not really, at this stage of my reading life, I'm not really into nonfiction, but I did read a fascinating literary biography this year. I had to do it for one of my reading challenges. The task was read a book with some kind of a weapon word in the title, like gun or knife or sword. And I bailed on so many books trying to find one that would fit that criteria. I was going out of my mind, and finally I happened upon a biography of Emily Dickinson and her family called Lives Like Loaded Guns, Emily Dickinson and Her Family's Feuds. And this was fascinating. I don't usually enjoy literary biography because I hate when the biographer overanalyzes, overinterprets, and especially if there's any psychoanalytic mumbo jumbo, it just drives me crazy. But this one there wasn't much of that, and instead she just told, with the flair of a novelist, the story of the Dickinson family and this couple that moved into town in about the 1860s that were a swinging couple, and the woman of that couple, the name's gone for me right now, but the woman starts a love affair with Emily Dickinson's brother, and the effect on Emily Dickinson's, not her poetry per se, but on, as most people know, her stuff wasn't really published at all until after her death. And it was this woman, her brother's lover, that basically spearheaded that, but that then there became this huge family feud that went down at least to the second generation, and the book is just fascinating. Number 4. In order to keep warm, it's good to spend some time with the people we love. Name a fictional family or household or friend group that you'd like to be part of. I answered really the identical question on the A to Z book tag, so I'm not going to regurgitate that. I'll just show you the book, The 1 in a Million Boy by Monica Wood. A very heartfelt novel that got all the way inside me, and I'd love to spend time with these people. This is number 5. The colorful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. I had fun picking these out. How's that for a pile of autumn-spined books, hey? Isn't that gorgeous? So I'd like to spend a few minutes going through these books, none of which I've read yet. This is a Pakistani novel called In Other Rooms, Other Wonders, and the author is Danielle Munadeen. I don't know anything about it. It's been sitting on my shelf for about a year. It's about a Pakistani land-owning family. The back cover tells me. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this guy can write better than his Booker shortlisted compatriot. Did I say that out loud? The next one is Bertram Cope's Year, and the author is Henry Blake Fuller. This is a 1919 American novel about gay people. That's all I know. This edition, which is probably 1980s, 1998 is the first time it was back in print. I have no idea whether it's any good, but I'm interested in historical gay literature, regardless of literary value. So, I'll give it a try. Ben Okri, The Famished Road, another Nigerian novel, a Man Booker Prize-winning novel. And it's supposed to be really good. Well, I don't know what's in the water in Nigeria. They have so many phenomenal writers, eh? But I hope to get to this maybe next year. This is the only one I'm going to read from. Joe Brainerd, I Remember. It's his memoir. Joe Brainerd was a gay writer with very little output. This is maybe one of his only publications before he died, quite young, of HIV. And this memoir is constructed of sentences. I think they're all one-sentence memories that start with, I remember, blah, blah, blah. And it's quite powerful. I don't know how I would feel reading it from cover to cover with that kind of repetitive sentence structure, but I'm going to read you just at random a page, just to give you a sense of it. I chose page 65, but page 64 has some little bit of raunch in it, but I know I'll just page 65. I remember how long Oscar Levant's piano numbers were. I remember, I think, a candy bar called Big Dick. I remember payday candy bars and eating the peanuts off first and then eating the center part. I remember a big brown chewy thing on a stick that you could lick down to a very sharp point. I remember a very chewy kind of candy sold mostly at movie theaters. Chocolate-covered caramel pieces of candy in a yellow box. They stuck to your teeth. So chewy, one box would last for a whole movie. I remember how boring newsreels were. I remember a boy named Henry who was said to have poured a mixture of orange pop and popcorn off the balcony of the Ritz movie theater as he made gagging sounds. I remember trying to imagine certain people going to the bathroom. I remember someone telling me that if you farted on a lit match, it would make a big blue flame. So that's one page, so that it's just like that. The whole book. It's quite charming, isn't it? I think I've read a few pages here and there and put it down and picked it up, but I should read it. It's 170 pages. British novel called Old Filth by Jane Gardam. I think it's the first of a trilogy, maybe. And I've heard good things about it. Haven't got to it yet. The protagonist is a lawyer, and I think he's an old man at the time of the story, but his nickname is Old Filth, which stands for Failed in London, Try Hong Kong. I'm really looking forward to getting to this novel. All the Rivers by Dorit Rabinyan. This is about a love story between an Israeli... I can't recognize the genders from the people's names on the back, so I'm just going to say it's between an Israeli and a Palestinian. I don't know which is which. Those kind of stories really appeal to me. This was a gift from a Litzy friend. Actually, the same Litzy friend sent me a box of books, and this was another one she sent me. This is the final one. Jade Chang's The Wangs versus the World. This is a riches to rags story set around the time of the 2008 meltdown, and about I think Taiwanese family, I'm not really sure, but Chinese-American family who lose all their riches and what happens to them. I've heard very mixed reviews of it, but I definitely want to give it a try. So that's my autumn stack. Number 6, fall is the perfect time for some storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein somebody is telling a story. But I do remember that a novel very near and dear to my heart that I read this year, Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. The frame is the main character telling her story to a friend. So that's kind of a story frame. So 7, the nights are getting darker. Share a dark, creepy read. I'm not really into horror at all, but I have to do one for a book challenge. So next month I'm going to do Bird Box by Josh Malerman, unless I bail on it, but I've heard it's pretty creepy. I don't mind horror movies that have a supernatural element, but I don't like axe murderers or that kind of a Friday the 13th thing. Freaks me out too much. But Bird Box is supposed to be creepy. Now, I did read last year Hex by Thomas Olde Huivelt, a Dutch novelist, and it was translated into English. And I give him full marks for a couple things. First, it's about a witch, and it's really hard to write a novel about a witch and make it scary, and he totally did. So, kudos. I also give him full marks because he's an absolute hottie. You can Google him. Oh my god! But I hated the novel by the end. It was really poorly written or translated, and I hated the ending, and I was quite disgusted. Wished that I hadn't bothered with it by the end. But the witch was a scary witch. Number 8, the days are getting colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. Again, for a book challenge, I did the middle grade novel Wonder by R.H. Palacio, which is about the disfigured middle grader boy, and it's quite heartwarming. Yeah, I would recommend it. Number 9, fall returns every year. Name an old favorite that you'd like to return to soon. So many, but I would just pick kind of almost at random. Margaret Atwood's Cat's Eye. I have such a complicated relationship to her fiction, and Cat's Eye is the only novel of hers that I've read, and I haven't read them all. Many of them I know that I just wouldn't like, so I haven't even touched, but Cat's Eye is the only one that for me had any kind of an emotional resonance, so I'd like to reread it. Because most of her fiction, it might be intellectually interesting, but it doesn't tug at me viscerally. Now, I read Handmaid's Tale this year, and it is a masterpiece. So I'd like to reread Cat's Eye. Number 10. Fall is the perfect time for cozy reading nights. Share your favorite cozy reading accessories. Now, this one is a complete eye roll for me. I have no idea what a reading accessory is, so I would say glass of wine and Google. And 11. Spread the autumn appreciation and tag some people. So I will tag generically anybody who hasn't done it and would like to. Consider yourself tagged. But 2 new guys that have been following my channel in the last few days and commenting, single out for special tagging: Caleb and Graham Quigley. You're it.